Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in Richland. Dr. John Boyle is accused of killing his wife, Noreen.
The 12-year-old son finally took the stand.
The boy confidently told the jury it was his decision to testify against his father.
I heard a scream. I heard a thud. It was about this
We,
loud.
the jury, find the defendant guilty.
I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, albeit with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. Mover Nation! Technical difficulties abound. I think our guest is going to make it. I'm just getting messages. Hopefully this works. I apologize for lateness, guys. Going to talk about this Karen Read case. What a day it was. What a snooze fest. But today, for extra added wonderful benefit for you guys and for me and for our entertainment, I have just sorted out our Marisol cam. For those of you that were not with us on the original on the Karen Read trial today, we had a Marisol cam. Marisol, good girl. So she is sitting right next to me, but a lot of you have requested Marisol cameras. Todd, can you hear me? Can I get a nod? Oy vey. Let's see. Let us see she looks confused. She looks confused. Yes, she does. Yeah, Todd is here. Todd is just experiencing a little technical difficulties. But for those of you that are new to the channel, this is Marisol. This is my Chihuahua. She is a year and a half. She is she has merchandise, she has stickers, she has all kinds of stuff. You can find them in the show notes and above the channel description. And I'm hoping Marisol. Yes. So welcome. Okay, so the Karen Read trial in its 20th day. Some people say it's the 21st. Some news outlets are talking 21st, 22nd, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's so wonderful. You have two Chihuahuas, Shay. Maybe it's just a true crime guy and his Chihuahua. That's what the channel ends up being. You never know. There are worse things in life. Let me get you guys a better picture here. There she is. She looks very nonplussed. She looks very nonplussed as to what's happening right here. So really wild stuff in the Karen Read case. Todd, if you can hear me, let me know. And can you hear me, brother? We're having AirPod difficulties. All right. We are going to discuss the day 20 of the trial. So there was some evidence that was presented this morning. There was the taillight. There was Trooper Michael Proctor's immediate superior, who also testified today. We're going to go over a lot of this, and also the clothes that were on John O'Keefe's body. So, and there's a lot of stuff they played in court that we did not get to see. There were some videos of the car, the vehicles. There was some videos of the snow. There was all kinds of stuff, which, oh yeah, you got two golden retrievers. Yes, Marisol is very cute, and she is my little sidekick. A guy and his Chihuahua. This is it. And we have lost Todd. What a bummer. Oy vey, if anything. So today we had testimony that focused on drinking in the bar. There was a lot of focus today on the bar and a lot of drinking. It says devices not connected. Hold on. Here we go. Yes, and Bukhenik. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about glasses being transferred, her taking a glass. It was a lot of stuff. And I understand there are a lot of very passionate people here about this, about this case. Are you hearing me at all? You guys can hear me, right? Obviously you can, because you're communicating with me. So there we are. But okay, so lots to talk about. I'm going to pull up. Sometimes technology is just like this, and it is what it is. That is unfortunately. So this no audio at all. Oy vey. That's a real bummer. That's a massive bummer. I'm so sorry you lost your dog. That is a terrible thing. Well, Marisol is here to say hi to everyone and to bring good Chihuahua energy to anyone who might need it. There we go. We got the camera balanced. I like that. That's nice. That's a bummer, Todd. Okay. That's weird. So we have you have no audio. That is a real bummer because Todd is an amazing guest, by the way. Such a bummer. And I know he restarted. Yeah. So, okay. So until I see all drinks accounted for with receipts, including the shots drunk by the other guys, I'm reserving judgment on 7 vodkas. Yeah. There's a lot of talk about this drinking. And let me tell you something. So as someone, and I've talked about this a lot, I know Todd is amazing. I really hope we can work this out. I can see him. He's there. He can see me. He just can't hear anything and he can't communicate. I could hear him great. So I don't know. Marisol is guest hosting. Yeah. So that's our proxy. Our proxy. So, okay. So what I was saying is, because now people are flooding. I'm so sorry. There's these issues. Okay. So as someone who quit drinking, I quit drinking on November 5th, 2020. I have never been so happy to be able to say that I have not drank in a very long time watching this trial. This leads me to, and I know that a lot of people talk about, and look, a lot of people don't have problems with alcohol, and that's amazing. And for myself, it just was a choice just to quit. And I was like, hey, I'm going to quit for 30 days and I'm going to be done. So I've never felt so much better about not drinking alcohol than watching this trial. I have to tell you, because all these problems really seem to swirl around intoxication. Everything that is going on. Put away the AirPods and go old school. Hey, maybe let's try. Hey, I'm all about it. Let's try it without AirPods. Just use MacBook mic and speakers. Here we go. I know a lot of you really want to hear what Todd has to say, as do I. What do you think? I think he's very intently trying to figure this out. It is a pain. And also, and yes, exactly. And driving all over. I messaged. We also don't know if she refilled with club soda or water. Where's the receipt? 7 drinks in 2 hours. She'll be on the floor. I agree with that. She's 95 pounds. I would be on the floor, and I am 215 pounds and almost 6'2". And I would be on the floor. I agree with that, Law Nerd 2.0. Shout out to Law Nerd Emily D. Baker, who's been covering this trial and who has like 5 million people on her channel. It's amazing. Yeah, it's everybody's drunk, everybody's driving around in the snow, and I get it. It's part of life. I understand. I'm not here to shame anyone who drinks, but it does seem to be a massive issue that has played a massive part. Oh, here's a thumbs up. Hold on. Todd, you can hear me? Go for it. You have. Hey, man. Hey, look at this. All right. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to make you the main person. What's up, man?
Doing good.
How you doing?
First night at the Celtics playoffs. I'm doing fantastic. First
night of what?
Celtics playoffs.
No, it's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow night.
Thursday. I think it's tonight, Thursday. I think.
Yeah, so today's Wednesday. Tomorrow, June 6th. Don't let it creep up on me too early.
Thursday.
Do me a favor. Can you slide to your right a little bit, please? Awesome. Look at that. Hey.
All right.
All right. Todd, so you can hear me. Okay. That's great. Lots of people are very excited for you to be a part. Thank you so much for joining the program again. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to make sure everything is on mute now that we've established your connection. So, man, so today, is it day 20 or day 21 of the trial, technically?
Yeah, I think we're like, well, there was no testimony, but I think we're at 21.
Yeah, so day 21 of yesterday was no testimony. So, yeah, somebody said day 20. I don't know. But I wanted to get your opinion because last time we spoke, you kind of gave me a really great overview of everything and the state's case and a lot of the stuff. But now this whole, with the testimony of I believe it's Yuriy, is that how you pronounce his last name? Yuriy Bukhenik. Yes. So with Officer Sergeant Bukhenik, how does this bring Michael Proctor into the picture? Because he is on both witness lists, right, for both the defense and the prosecution. What does that look like right now with the situation with him?
So let me start with Trooper Proctor. If he's not called by the prosecution, although he's on the list, as you've mentioned, Collier, if they do not call him and the defense, Mr. Jackson, calls him, that's not a good look for the prosecution. He should be one of the star witnesses for the prosecution, lead investigator, present your findings. This was the report that you have submitted as a result of your findings. Very, very standard, very, very straightforward. Now, we are still waiting to hear from Trooper Proctor, and it appears as if he's going to be called by the defense, by Jackson and Yannetti. So problematic, absolutely 100% problematic for the prosecution in this case. The local buzz here on the East Coast is exactly what we've been reporting on your podcast, that defense is definitely in the lead. And there's certain evidence that we're waiting for the judge to be put in. The last trial, we did hear some more of the forensics of things, that being call logs, some video analysis. There was also some of the state scientific investigators from the crime lab that also presented. I believe we heard from 3 of them. So incredible analysis, great information that they've provided. But what was interesting, Collier, that came up, one of the forensic analysts found a hair on the bumper of the vehicle. And what came out during the testimony was that the vehicle left Canton PD, it went to the crime lab, and then came back to Canton PD, all including in a snowstorm. And how could this one single hair make its way 60 miles round trip? So that was something else interesting that came up as of testimony from earlier this week.
Yeah, and today the young woman, the blonde woman that was on the witness stand this morning, the first person, I believe, she seemed very confused by a lot of questions, or what the direction of the defense's questioning was going. She seemed to be very straightforward. But one of the things that she was talking about is she was trying to establish the chain of custody, right? Which I think is a big hole in this. And full disclosure, I've had a few people, anonymous people who I'm putting on the show here coming up, who live in Canton, who've had experience with all of these characters involved in this scenario, are talking to me off the record, but on the record, if that makes sense. We're disguising their voice and what they look like right now, but they have given me a lot of information about this police chief Berkowitz, which was a new name to me. And apparently his involvement in all this, because he was apparently on medical leave because he, unfortunately has bone cancer, and then put himself back on the case. What can you tell me a little bit about him exactly? Because he was a new character that was introduced to me yesterday. I'm like, who's this guy?
Well, I can tell you, Chief Berkowitz is a personal friend of mine. As it turns out, I was his drill instructor when he went through the academy 27 years ago. He's a great guy, is very popular in the city and town of Canton over the decades that he was chief of police, and by all means, well respected by his department and his colleagues abroad from different agencies. I am waiting for him to be called to the stand. He's identified certain key elements of evidence that was collected, aka the tail lens, and also just some of the accommodations that he may have made for Brian Higgins, that he may have made for the vehicle being stored as evidence. Those are questions that Chief Berkowitz may end up having to address if called by, certainly by defense, but if called by prosecution, it'll be interesting to see how that testimony goes.
Yeah, and I know that one of the things that's sort of looming over his head is this personal relationship with Brian Higgins, and again, I'm just speaking of what people have told me, but there is apparently a lapse in time, but when the vehicle arrives at the Sally Port, which I guess is a garage, but it has 4 doors instead of 2 or something, so it's what a Sally Port is. I learned that recently. But that there's a time that footage has gone missing when the vehicle entered. Is there any truth to that you know of?
I don't know that to be the case. However, the timeline, from my viewing, really still hasn't been solidified yet. There are some gaps along the way, especially in the early morning. That 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. response by Canton PD, the temporary crime scene setup, and then of course they took the crime scene down within 2 hours prior to Trooper Proctor and State Police being able to get out to the property. The other issue, what I think is important for your viewers to understand, is that Brian Higgins was still alive when he was discovered, and so because
wait, Brian Higgins or John O'Keefe?
I'm sorry. John O'Keefe. Thank you for that correction.
There's a lot of names, man. There's a lot of names flying around.
Thank you. So John O'Keefe was alive once discovered, and EMTs tried to revive him. They worked on him inside the hospital. So that's another reason why the state police hadn't come out yet, because it wasn't a fatal that they would respond to out of protocols. So the time lapse around those early morning occurrences, we talked about the butt dials last time. That's one set of timelines. The search for how long can a body survive in the cold, that's another part of the timeline. And then of course the response of Karen Reed and her friend Jen McCabe in driving back to the Albert's house. So all the way through, the timeline is really choppy. It's unclear. There's been cell phone evidence that's been compromised or missing that is going to preclude stitching together the timeline. So I think right now that the timeline is still in question.
So doesn't that make it sort of difficult for the state to build a case then, if there's no timeline that's been established? We're 5 weeks into this trial, right? Like, shouldn't we have like this happened, this, because when and full disclosure, today was my first day watching the trial, like watching it from start to finish. I've seen clips, I've seen this, and just the amount of, there's lots of sidebars, there's lots of I can't imagine what the jury is going through, because it's confusing for me. And I'm sitting here reading the live transcript from the courtroom, listening to it, talking to people. I'm like, how do they even put this together? And you've got it. They're showing the bar, they're showing this, and then she's got a glass. It's how do you think they can even possibly stitch this together at this point? Doesn't it seem like a fool's errand?
Well, you have these problematic issues, and they're as long as the day is long. But that being said, I think the jury does need some type of foundational aspect of the case. here's where we're going to start at issue A, and we're going to methodically work our way through along and attach this process to a timeline. But there's gaps, and those gaps are being questioned, rightfully so, by Attorney Jackson in really trying to punch holes and doing a great job in the prosecution's case. The other aspect about some of the confusing aspects, entering the evidence into the trial in and of itself is its own process. So you see a lot of stop and go, and you see a lot of permissions from being granted by the judge for to approach the witness, to enter certain items into evidence. So you have that element of the trial as well. So again, the jury is I'm sure they're doing a remarkable job. They're doing the best to stay engaged. But another issue is that the length of the trial, is that going to compromise participation in the jury? Is someone going to say, I've got a real job, I've got to go back to my real life? What's going to happen then? So a number of questions at hand that are significant in the case, specifically around the timeline.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think, I think most people are probably thinking what our special, we have a, I don't know if you heard, there's a new guest host of this show, my co-host really. So she has arrived, and they all are wondering, could they be like Marisol, who can, sleep through the trial and get her rest. So I think that a lot of these jurors maybe are sometimes wishing that they could trade places with her, get a snuggly blanket, and do that whole thing. I want to go to some questions. What's that?
Yeah, life would be great if that could happen.
Life would be great if we all could have that. If we all could have the life of my dog, we would all be better humans. That's for sure. There's quite a few questions here. And if you guys do have questions for Todd, please just do a QQQ to call attention to this. Let me see here. Somebody talks. Law Nerd has asked, on the video, movement jumps around like seconds have been taken out. People are in one spot, then next second they're totally somewhere else in the Sally Port. What do you think about that? Does that allude to sort of any sort of malfeasance, or is that just sort of, I mean, I'm a video guy. I mean, that makes me kind of go, well, they cut something out? How does that work?
I think there's two areas to give analysis on that type of video. One, if the frames, as we kind of understand how videography works, if the frames are moving at a slower rate, but the time on the timestamp is consistent, maybe not so much of a concern. But if we're missing chunks of time, whereas we know that video can be clipped and edited, then again, Attorney Jackson and Attorney Yannetti are going to be all over that. So, that then goes into, what was the camera looking at? Was it looking at the solo cups with blood inside of the Stop and Shop bag? Was it pointing at the vehicle to make sure no one tampered with the vehicle? Are there conditions about the vehicle that were different in frame 2 minutes, 30 seconds that are different in frame 4 minutes, 50 seconds? So that's, again, a part of that forensic analysis that is essential for this case, and that defense will have a tap dance all over if they identify any indiscrepancies.
It's interesting. I come from a background as a filmmaker, and I do remember as camera technology was advancing in the late, 2015s, mid 2010s, so rather like around 2015, there was iframes and there's interlace, and then there's ways that cameras scan. They scan from top down, or they do a print or a reprint of each individual frame. So that does make sense. Now that you say that, I'm like, yeah, that could work in that. Maybe they should call me as an expert witness on video. Maybe I should make myself I could have a new little like side job.
It's a long list. You might be able to make your way on there.
I think so. Trisha Miller asks, or is commenting here, the damage to the taillight happened at the house. It was not as severe as it was at the Sally Port. who further damaged the light. Now, I don't know if that's a little conjecture here or if there's actual evidence that was displayed today. Is that something that's actually true, or are we trying to sort of suss out what were the facts were from today's evidentiary stuff?
So there's a number of concerns around the tail ends, specifically what your audience has just mentioned. But going back to the depositions that happened close to 2 years ago, there was testimony, I believe, by Jen McCabe that was a cracked tail lens. And also someone else that evening testified in a deposition that was cracked as opposed to missing pieces, chunks of pieces. So that's problematic. The defense is already all over that. And then the other issue is when the analyst had spoke on the forensic side of things, and the shattered glass as it's presented in court is a discrepancy that's even on, I believe, a Ring doorbell cam, where the lens seems to be more intact the evening of this incident in the wee hours of the morning. So at first glance, it appears that there's a major discrepancy. I don't understand if it was logged and maybe there was some sample testing so that maybe one piece was removed and tested against what was found on Officer O'Keefe's body to make sure that it's consistent. That could happen. That's an element as far as the investigation goes and the forensic side of things, where they need almost like a foundational piece or a set sample piece in order to compare or contrast and make sure it came from the same vehicle. So that nuance hasn't fully been flushed out yet, but it is a real issue as far as why does it appear this way early on in the evening, documented on video, and then now there's a discrepancy later on in the fact that they're saying there's glass parts, there's tail lens on the body of John O'Keefe.
But it's not even really glass; it's plastic or carbonite. So how does that? Because there was talk of, and as I was watching the trial today, there was talk about glass, and a bar glass. Am I mistaken on that? There was him getting hit with a bar glass, supposedly. What is that about?
The bar glass was found at the time of the blood sample, the blood collection. So there could be a summation that he was either struck with it or he had the glass while he was at the house. And at some point, as he collapsed to the ground, maybe it crashed then. So there's still some speculation around the presence of the glass. But let's go back to the tail lens aspect of things. In my 24-year career, I spent some time as an accident reconstructionist. And the speeds that have been discussed that may have impacted, and again, we're playing out the scenario that Karen Reed in reverse struck John O'Keefe at the speed of 20 to 25 miles per hour. If that were to happen, could you crack a tail lens glass? You could, but that glass is very thick. It's very robust glass. The fact that glass would shatter, hitting a human body at that speed, I would say is unlikely. You would need to have an equal and opposing force in order to get the glass shattered, such as Karen Reed backing out of the vehicle and bumping into John O'Keefe's vehicle that was already entered into testimony. So, and again, there was a deposition where more than one person had stated the glass was cracked, not broken, in pieces.
I got rear-ended years ago in my Toyota truck, which is also the makers of a Lexus. And I remember I was able to drive around with that busted taillight because it didn't really bust, and it was on the freeway, and it was, he wasn't, probably was going 30 miles an hour, boom. But I mean, it was enough to jar me, but it didn't, it wasn't like, it's like in the movie business, we use like what's called breakaway glass. It's made out of sugar. So when you hit somebody over the head on a, the glass goes a million and one, it's thousands, millions of pieces on set, right? Doesn't really work that way in the real world. You hit somebody with a bottle, it might not even break, which is what causes so much damage to your brain, right? But you think about a taillight again, how does it, these are these discrepancies again. How does, we talked about this when you initially came on the program. How does, when the prosecution presents this type of evidence, not to be rude, but are they listening to what they're saying? Are they believing like that they can convince someone of this?
It almost seems the strategy is just throw enough against the wall and we'll see what sticks. That's not a good strategy. You have to present evidence. And that's been one of the criticisms as to why the DA brought this case forward, based on the problematic issues with the evidence. John, I want to go back to John O'Keefe in the tail lens glass.
Yeah.
So if you think just logically, if you think about the transfer of glass onto his body, there also should be some type of material. I believe they entered in his clothing in the last testimony over the last couple of days. He had I think a gray hoodie or something. There should be fibers that are attached, not just hair. There should be fibers attached to the lens, to the tail lens. There's a transfer, if you will, of materials because of impact. That's never come up in this trial, as far as any type of threads or any type other than the hair in the bumper that did a 60-mile round trip, partly through a snowstorm. That factor has not been brought up to inside the court before the judge and jury. So really looking to hear more forensics of things to see if there's really a thorough investigation done here.
Yeah, it seems, and I'm gonna pull up a photo right here of the actual lens crackings that were, or the pieces of the lens that were actually admitted into or shown to the court today. I don't know if I would say admitted into evidence. I don't know, but it's pretty interesting to see. Just again, they're big. These look like big pieces, right?
Big chunks.
You know what I mean?
So when you look at the clothing, there somewhere there should have been some type of transfer of fibers, some type of thread transferred onto those glass pieces. Not to mention, you would think there may be some type of engine grease or some type of vehicle soot that was on the clothing. That hasn't been discussed.
Of the engine grease,
any undercarriage, any type of undercarriage, dirt, debris, the salt from the roadways, any of those things that would be sticking to a vehicle. If Karen Reed hit him and possibly continued over, partially rolling over the body, there's going to be a transfer of material. And it could be a number of things, from grease to salt to, up here in New England, they salt the roads during the snowstorms. More evidence should be on his clothing.
Yeah, because that is literally, Todd, one of the main reasons why I moved to Los Angeles, is to get away from all that crap in the middle of the winter. The gray snow packed with the ice and all, and the salt and everything underneath the bumper. So you're saying none of that has been, I mean, have they just not put that into evidence and said that, or it wasn't on the clothes to begin with?
Now's the time. Now's the time to put, as far as the prosecution goes, to put all these elements. They're behind the defense in this trial. So I would think, common sense, that they would start to move towards putting some of their heavy duty evidence forward. Now you have the state examiner, forensic analysis, the scientists that were testifying on Monday, and I believe also this morning. But they were very good. They were very solid. The second young lady appeared to be a little green, but nonetheless, she was able to articulate the process in what she did as far as the analysis goes. But that being said, I don't know why the prosecution would wait to hold back any evidence that they have at this stage of the game.
Yeah, it just seems strange to me. It just doesn't make any sense. And I'm not just the whole way that this entire case is played out before us. And again, like I'm watching the trial the whole day. I woke up at 4 a.m. here LA time so I could get up and watch it, and stream it and be like, okay, what are we looking at here? I'm going, what is happening here? And I realize there's been 20 other days or 19 other days that people have been watching this going, what is going on here? I mean, and again, this takes me back to something that we discussed when you were on the program last time or a couple weeks ago, and is how does, again, there is still a police officer who is dead, who was killed in some way, whether it's by the defendant in this case or whether it's by something else that happened, the boogeyman, whatever have you. How does that? How do we get to justice for John O'Keefe? Because again, for all intents and purposes, this seems to be a very good human being that lost his life.
Mm. Yes.
And
he took the custody of his niece and nephew.
Yeah.
Just stand-up guy to try and do the best things for his family. 16-year veteran of the Boston Police Department. Just again, more good things to say about him than not. And I'm glad you took a moment to bring that out and highlight that, because it's easy to get lost in the circus of this trial, and you have a loss of life that is right now. He's not getting due process. Karen Reed's getting due process. She's got tremendous counsel from Attorney Jackson and Attorney Yannetti, but John O'Keefe is this is really a disturbing turn of events. Something else, Collier, I want to mention that many people are saying, well, Canton Police was really involved in the investigation. Here's what we have to understand. In the early announcement, where there's a body found on the front of a property, the local jurisdiction is going to respond. It's their job to establish a crime scene. And if they didn't have all the resources to do so, you slow things down and you wait for those resources to come. Subsequently, John O'Keefe passed from whatever damage that was done to his body. At that point, now you bring out state police, our CPAC, our CPAC investigators, our crime scene services investigators, who know not to put blood inside silo cups and know not to put silo cups inside of a stop and shop bag, where there's most likely potential for cross-contamination. So the chain of custody starts minute one with that responding police department. That's police work 101. Establish the crime scene. And then from there, you don't let anyone compromise by trampling through the crime scene. So those are basic, fundamental aspects of any investigation, regardless of the crime. And so, right from there, the problems begin, right from minute one.
And again, this is because to me, and I posed this to Mark Bedrow, who I interviewed the other day, there's so much talk. I mean, obviously we've seen policing over the last, 4 years really come under scrutiny. And, it's been longer than that, obviously. And you would know, and as an officer and also as a person of color, what the issues have been. Right. But I think, we still have this idea of like, it's the good old boy club. It's this, they protect their own. Like, I would have imagined it would have been a flood of officers being like, hey, hey, I'm here. Like, what can I do to help? Officer down. What can I do? I'm still really trying to, as just an observer, come to terms to really understand what the protocol was that day.
what's really hard to wrap our brains around is the close-knit community that Canton is. And that's where Attorney Jackson and Attorney Yannetti started off in their trying this case, in trying to show any type of bias, any type of police bias. The Albert family is an influential family in the town. They just are. And, the defense is part of their defense is, did that have any influence in how this investigation was going to fold? So I would also like to see the posture of the Boston police. It was an off-duty issue. They may have internal policy where there's a certain set of inquiries. I don't want to call it an investigation, but inquiries that may happen. But it's just so many questions. It's almost that after every day of trial, we get more questions than we do answers.
That's the thing. That's the thing that I think is so interesting, and that's what I was talking about. Where they're like, now they're playing bar footage. I would think that would have been like 3 weeks ago, and I thought they did play bar footage like 3 weeks ago. You know what I mean? It's just, it seems like everything is being put out of order, so it's very confusing. Somebody had just mentioned in the comments here, they didn't even search inside the house, y'all, and I don't know if that's true or not, but have they even mentioned that? Like, wouldn't they just naturally go, okay, and you've said this, police officer and there's police officer's house, let's go in and talk to the other police officer to see what's happening?
That came up in the first week of the trial, why the Canton police didn't do a more thorough interview. And all of the Canton police officers, when asked that question, said, we didn't have a warrant. Now, the law says that in your home, you have a greater expectation of privacy than you would say in your motor vehicle, right? So that's clear. However, if there was any evidence that was found, if they went in there, they could have backed everything up. They could have got a warrant from one of the magistrates, from the judge, and then they could have gone back to the house. Now, I would think, as a fact finder in an investigation, you're going to do everything possible. You're going to bang on every door within 3-4 houses. Did you see anything? Did you hear anything? Can you glean or provide any information for us to glean in this investigation about a body that was found at your neighbor's house? I want to see ring doorbells from your property, and if they're facing the Albert's house, I want to see what that footage looks like from a ring camera. So those lack of responses early on in the case is where things start going sideways.
I mean, I don't like to take things back to my own personal experience, but when my mother went missing, our neighbor like next door was a sheriff, and he, I had heard he had an alcohol problem or whatever, but they went to him and they were like, "Did you see anything? Did you see her get into a car? Did you see her leave the house as her husband says that she did, and as the kid said that she didn't?" And he's like, "No, I never saw it." And he was like, "I was laying on the couch watching TV, drinking a beer or whatever. I never saw anything," because it was, it was New Year's, right? And he was like, so that's, a long time ago. And I think about this is like, don't they have people that just come in and just ask? Even Boston PD would, and I understand this is Canton, but would Boston PD say, look, we're doing an investigation of our own officer? Why didn't they do anything? Or is it just their hands are tied?
I think their hands are tied, but let's go back to your initial point that even if they were not going to go into the house, and we'll say, okay, it is a warrant issue or lack thereof, can you step on your front porch? Can you come outside? Who's here in the house? Who's been in the house over the last several hours? Those are basic rudimentary questions. And then you take a statement from the witnesses, and we'll be back in touch with you. Your property is a crime scene. Don't walk in this area. We've taped everything off. Standard basic police function 101 in an investigation.
And again, it's like, and back to Karen Reed, somebody just said, "Is it got to be her defense? Has got to be $1 million easy." What if she doesn't have? I mean, she's a woman of means, clearly, who I don't think really wants to spend her money on this. Let's just keep it real. Nobody wants to do this. What happens if she didn't have those abilities? What is that?
Guaranteed, she would not have this level of counsel. Attorney Jackson, Attorney Yannetti, they're sharp. Not their first rodeo. They've had other high-profile cases, and they've been successful in those other high-profile cases. I mean, Kevin Spacey case, they got him off. So.
And they also, Jackson also was the prosecutor, right, for Phil Spector. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, that was a case that was a big deal. Getting Phil Spector.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal. He knows his way around the courtroom. He understands what he can get away with, and he also knows where he can push the envelope. You see that in his strategy and his style, both he and Attorney Yannetti. If it gets objected and the judge sustains it, continue to march. But they got that seed planted in. That being said, if she was not a woman of means, she could have a completely different experience at this stage. Not only if she didn't have the means to have such high-profile attorneys, this case could have been over in 3 weeks instead of being partially through it at week 5.
Yeah, it's why I know some people commented.
And with a finding not in her favor.
Repeat that again, just so they can hear it.
The case could have been done 2 weeks ago in a finding not in favor of her.
Yeah, I would concur with that. It would seem that that would be the thing. Somebody says here, CCNSD says FBI says no, he wasn't hit by a vehicle. I know we discussed the last time you were on a little bit about this. These 3 investigators from the feds that came in to do some forensic work, and they and tell me a little bit about that. Just I don't want to mess it up. You know way more than I do.
Well, yes, the FBI had an external investigation on this, and I think there were a number of issues at play. Was part of Brian Higgins' involvement in this a reason, not the reason, but a reason for them to be a part of to process their investigation? The misconduct, potential misconduct of Officer Proctor, Trooper Proctor, where he should have recused himself, and all of these other factors are weighing in. Those areas where the federal jurisdiction to come in, that's not an everyday automatic rubber stamp. Bring the feds in because there's a body on the front of a property. So there were some other triggers that happened, and I know that what is common is that when there is misconduct within the department and it goes outside of the scope of internal affairs, then you bring in an outside agency. Locals will bring in state will bring in federal in order to investigate some of those allegations. So that still remains to be seen. That's a whole nother side of the story that we're all waiting to hear more about.
I know you're running short on time, Todd, but I did want to ask one more question. I teased it in the description. Do you think Michael Proctor will actually be put on the stand? And what does that look like for him? I mean, it's like, Lucy, you got a lot of explaining to do, right?
Lucy does have a lot of explaining to do. It's going to look really bad if he's not brought on the stand by prosecution. Guaranteed. You have Attorney Jackson, Attorney Yannetti. They've been prepared this whole entire case, and they're going to have a set of questions that are going to run him around, the whole process of what he did from start to finish, and everything in the middle, including what type of communications did you have with Jen McCabe? What type of communications did you have with the Alperts? Unofficially, away from the investigation. They're going to look and bring all those types of elements out. And again, it's not going to be a good look for the prosecution when that happens.
Yeah. And, there's been a little conjecture that I've heard that people have said the state doesn't want him to testify because of his involvement in another case that took place right down the way in Cohasset, the case of Anna Walsh. And that situation, because that could cause him his investigative work in that particular case to come under scrutiny. Is there any truth to that?
Yes. So there is a credibility issue within law enforcement, and it goes well beyond what we're talking about in either case, in the Walsh or the O'Keefe case. If an officer is found that they have lied or they have compromised the veracity in their investigation, police officer in standards training, the state agency will then put them on what's called a Brady list. And if your name is on the Brady list, every time you appear before a magistrate, you're questioned. And the opposing attorney is going to call and question the veracity of you as a police officer in general, based on these past investigations that you are either lead investigator in or that you potentially compromised your veracity. So that is a very, very true thing. And the fact that the prosecution doesn't want their lead investigator to testify is a huge problem. Huge problem.
Yeah, and then there was talk about him being called as a hostile witness because of that by the defense, so they can grill him even more, right?
Oh yeah, he'll be on the stand for days.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's not. This whole thing is just so bizarre to me, and look, I'm a fan for justice, no matter what that is. I want to see justice for everyone involved in this situation, because it's really unfortunate. And again, we lose fact of a young man that lost his life, and was a very good guy, and a new father to children that lost so much. So, as we say, a stand-up guy, right? Todd, thank you so much for your time today. My guest is Todd McGhee. He is a retired Massachusetts state trooper, and after a successful 24-year career in public safety, he provides international training and education, the U.S. Department of State, Office of Anti-Terrorism Assistance. He also contributes to mainstream media, providing insight and analysis on homeland security, active shooter, aviation security, and school security-related topics. Todd McGhee, thank you so much. Again, just to give a shout out, it was Memorial Day last week, and that flag is in memory of your father who served our country very bravely, and you honor him by having him and that wonderful Purple Heart behind you. I wanted to point that out again, and then thank your family for your service to our country.
Thank you, Collier. And I always enjoyed the session with you and the podcast. Your audience are great. And, you really touched on some points as far as what John O'Keefe really deserves for due process, and a tremendous loss on many levels. But the truth will reveal itself, and we just have to stand by and stitch. Unfortunately, we have to stitch the truth together in this particular case. It's not falling in line the way that we should expect, but it'll all work itself out in the end.
I think so. It always does, right? Todd, thank you so much. Appreciate you working through the technical difficulties and still showing up here for me and my audience. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Good to see you, Collier.
Good to see you too. Have a great day. Mover Nation. Thank you so much to Todd McGhee for joining the program. It's great. Guys, we had like our largest live ever. Thank you so much for everyone who showed up. And who I know a lot of you guys have opinions on everything, and I know that, and I appreciate everyone and their real dedication to this, doing our best to sort of pick through all this. I think everybody is. I mean, I watched the trial today. I'm like, what is happening? But I want to say thank you so much for tuning in the channel. Thank you for all the love that you guys, all the videos and everything that you guys are watching and commenting on, and keep the comments coming. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys think about everything. This is my beautiful little Marisol, who is sleeping right next to me in her little playpen. Yes, sweetie, we're talking about you, and really nobody shows up for me. They show up for you. Oh, there we go. Hi, sweetie. Oh, yes. Thank you guys so much. There she is in all her glory. Mover Nation, we get through another one, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm going to be talking a lot more about this. I'll be live tomorrow streaming the trial again, and we'll all be engaged in wonderful conversation and hopefully have enough coffee to keep us up. Anyways, here's the outro, guys. Mover Nation, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to all my channel members and Patreon supporters. And for more exclusive content, behind the scenes videos, monthly VIP meet and greets, and watch parties, please consider supporting me on Patreon or by becoming a YouTube channel member. If you like this video, check out this one right here or this one right here. And don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps with the algorithm. On that note, I'm Collier Landry. I'll see you on the next one. Good girl, Marisol. Good girl.